Hey everyone, so in today's video we'll be making a mini toast component. It will have just 3 states, a neutral state, a success state, and an error state, and it will have an option to have a link here on the right. So to get us started, I have a new Figma file, and there are only a couple things I did. First, I have some colors, and I already turned them into color styles. And then I also got 2 icons for success and error state. And I got this, like always, from the phosphor icons. If you are going to use phosphor icons, though, just make sure that you have the style set to fill. And actually, the first thing that I'm going to do, I am going to turn this into components. So I'll rename this one to check circle and this one to X circle. And then we'll select both and we'll create multiple components. You can also combine this again into like a frame and call them icons. This just makes it easier to find the icons later on. When you go to your assets section here, there is a subsection that's called icons, and it has all your icons in it. We'll start by creating our default toast component. And to do that, I'll have a text layer here, and we can say something like toast text. And this one, I'll do Shift A to add auto layout. And the first thing that we can do is add a fill of our black, and then we'll change our text color to this white text here. And we're going to update this font weight to semi-bold, and then we can select the frame, the 4-pixel border radius, and we're going to update our vertical and horizontal padding to 16. So that's essentially our default toast. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to make a copy, and this one is going to contain our link. It's going to be our variant link. So I'll make one more copy, and this one I will say link. I also want to add an underline, Command plus U. And this one I'm actually going to change color from white to like this lightish blue. And then from here we want to remove the border radius from the left 2 corners for the link, and then from the right 2 corners for the text. And then we're going to go ahead and combine these 2 together. And we want to have no spacing in between. And then we also want to add a divider for the link. So we'll add a left stroke. And actually I don't have any color for the gray, so I'll just do this one. And here's our toast with our link. Now we can turn these 2 into components, but before I do that, I'm actually going to update the text to 14 pixels instead of 12. And now we can remove both of these to toast, and we'll create a component set. And one thing that I always like to do is to add auto layout on the actual component set. Once you start adding more variants, it's just easier to manage. Our first property we'll call state, and both of these are neutral. And then we're also going to add a second property, also a variant, and this one is going to be a link. And this one is going to have a no. And this one is going to have yes. So one thing to note, why didn't we use the Boolean component property for the link? And the reason for that is that when we add the link, our styles slightly change. So we remove the right border radius from this part here. The Boolean component property works perfectly when all you want is to have something either shown or not shown without changing any of the surrounding styles. Since this is not the case here, we do have to use the variant, but the good thing is that you still get your like toggle here, just like you would do if you use the Boolean component property. So for people who use the component, to them it really makes no difference. So now we're ready to add our other states, our positive and error state. One thing that I'm going to do before then is just rename this frames. I just like it when it's like nice and neat. I always rename my layers. And from here, what we're going to do is we're going to copy these two, and then for the link we'll leave as mixed, and for the state we'll do positive. And now what I'm going to do is, actually for our icon, we're going to change the color of it right in the main component. So I'll change this one to green and this one to red. And then I'm going to take an instance of our check mark, and I'll drop one in here, and I'll drop one in here. And what we want to also make sure is that both of these are centered, and for the spacing we want 8. Now you can see our heights are slightly different because the icon is obviously a little taller. So actually what I think I had in my test file, I did change the line heights for the text to be 140, and that should bring all toasts to the same height. Obviously, using the line height is just one way to make sure that the height is always the same, but there are also other ways that you could achieve that. For example, setting the height of the toast to fixed. One more thing that I'm noticing here is, as you can see, the check mark in the toast here is transparent. So we see the black background in the background, and I don't want that. I want it to also be white. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to create an ellipse. And I think this one we want 20. And then I'll give it a background of white. And I'm just going to drop it inside our check circle. So right here. And we'll bring the actual icon to the top. And from here, what I want to do is combine this and flatten. And now, as you can see, I do have the white background here. And before we do our arrow state, I'm going to do the same thing here. Just bring it inside. Make sure it's centered. Bring this to the top. Make it white and flatten it. So now we can copy these two, and we're going to grab an instance of the arrow icon or the negative state, and we're going to place it inside, and then we'll update the state to say negative. So that's really it for the mini toast component. If you can recall from a couple months back, we did a much larger toast component, and that one had like a name, a description, 4 different variants for states, and it had an option like to be dismissed. But there's also definitely a use case for something small and slick, such as this mini toast. And last but not least, we can do a quick test. I'm going to go to my original file and grab these components, place them inside here, and we will recreate them using our new toast. Okay, so this one is like a version update. And the second one is not going to have a link, it's going to be a positive state. So something like this, it will just pop up and it would disappear maybe a couple seconds later. Like it's just a confirmation. You don't really need to do anything about this one. As a link. So yeah, these are our examples. And one last thing that came up as I was recreating these toasts. So typically the bigger toast component could appear either in the center, at the top, or top right, sometimes top or bottom right. Whereas this mini toast, I usually see them appear either top center or bottom center. I don't think I've ever seen it appear elsewhere. So that's just something to keep in mind when you think about the placement. Other than that, that's it for this tutorial. I will leave the link to the Figma file in the description, and please let me know if you have any questions, and I'll see you next time. Bye!